Thank you for being with us. Let's start with the situation in the Middle East. A tactical pause in fighting in Gaza was called by Israel. The reality is that airstrikes, though, continue. These are the images that we are seeing. And there are deaths being reported through malnutrition too. Israel has bowed to international pressure to allow more aid into the Gaza Strip. These airdrops of food aid have been carried out by Jordan and the United Arab Emirates. The World Health Organization, meanwhile, is warning that malnutrition is at a dangerous level. Let's get the analysis. We're joined by Angela Diffley here in the studio. Angela, good evening to you. Thank you for being with us. Donald Trump's been explaining to reporters in his sit-down meeting with Keir Starmer up in Turnberry in Scotland. Trump there combining his state business with his personal business, his golf courses there, of course. Trump's been talking about the USA going to be involved in setting up what he called food centres so that food aid might be more safely distributed to Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Can you tell us more about what this could mean?
Yeah, I think I'm right in saying that those bombs that are still being dropped were outside the 10 hours in which the Israelis say they will do a daily military pause so that humanitarian assistance can reach the right people. To your question on Trump, and what was really interesting that came out of this, Trump with Starmer, as you say, and they were asked questions about the situation in Gaza, and Trump said, we will be setting up food centres and there will be no boundaries, no fences. He did not elaborate. Very difficult to see how that would work. And after the clear failure of the previous attempt, largely organised by Israelis and the Americans, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which might well continue to operate along with other aid agencies, along with the UN. A lot of movement is taking place now. A lot of different avenues of aid now appear to be moving in this 10-hour pause, but difficult to see how those walk-in centres, how he actually described them in one case, would work with no security. You know, we will wait to see. Another interesting point which came out of that press conference, if you like, with Keir Starmer. Trump used the word starvation. He said he wasn't convinced by Israeli leader Netanyahu's wording that it wasn't starvation. There wasn't any starvation. So that was a new departure. He spent a lot of time talking about the hostages and said a new way must be found, that he believed that Hamas would not release the remaining hostages because they are, to put it crudely, their only bargaining chip. He said, I didn't expect them to release the remaining hostages. They're not going to. And he said he and Netanyahu were talking about other possibilities. He said talks would be the best way to get them out, but otherwise more energetic. And then he used the word ruthless, violent options might be needed to get those remaining hostages out. Keir Starmer was sitting next to him and a couple of times took a slightly stronger stance. He said he found the pictures of the starving children revolting. He is not keen, Keir Starmer, on the idea of recognising a Palestinian state. So there was no movement on that. He doesn't think it would be useful and it would only be under very strict conditions. So there was certainly no movement publicly on that.
Let's, before you come back in, hear from the French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot.
We cannot accept civilians, women and children being targeted when they go to food distribution places. That is unacceptable. The New York conference, and this will be my second point, must be a turning point and a transformational juncture for the implementation of the two-state solution. We must work on the ways and means to go from the end of the war in Gaza to the end of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot speaking in New York. Of course, Trump made no mention of the fact that Israelis were firing at Palestinian civilians at the distribution points. He kind of dodged that completely in terms of speaking about that when he was suggesting about these walk-in centres that they want to create. There's a special meeting at the UN, as we've just seen, in New York to promote the idea of a two-state solution for the Israelis and the Palestinians. What might we expect from this, Angela?
Yeah, just on that point you raised, Israel maintains that Hamas foments unrest, and it has not denied that its soldiers shoot and Palestinian civilians have been killed. They suggest that Hamas is deliberately trying to scupper this. That is highly possible, but it is also to be pointed out that Israel should have foreseen that before setting up these Gaza Humanitarian Foundation setups or promoting their setup. On to this conference sponsored by the French and the Saudis to promote a two-state solution. Most importantly, both the United States and Israel have decided not to go. The United States says that it is not a useful time to be discussing this while negotiations between Israel and Hamas are stalled. And Israel, the relationship with the United Nations has so badly broken down that it is in no way surprising that Israel is not taking part. The reality is, since October the 7th, that in both places, amongst the Palestinians and amongst ordinary Israelis, there is less support for a two-state solution than there has been on many occasions in the past. That is a reality on the ground. It doesn't matter what people outside the territories think. That is the situation amongst the peoples in both places. And it also is very unclear, whenever the two-state solution, everything that has been proposed very closely resembles the two-state solution rejected by Yasser Arafat in 2000 at Camp David under Bill Clinton. That was rejected by the Palestinians, and the propositions since do not seem to be very different to that. So that is another area of concern. That said, a lot of Arab and Arab nations in the area are participating in this. It is hoped, and Jean-Noël Barrot has been talking about an ambitious dynamic. They want to try and get more and more people to recognize a Palestinian state, the French, before September the 21st. That is the deadline they're giving themselves. And they also want more and more Arab countries to condemn Hamas and insist that Hamas disarms. Whether that will move anything, very much depends on what happens on the ground between now and then in the area.
Indeed. Meanwhile, people desperately needing that aid to get into the Gaza Strip. We will obviously watch for all developments there. And thanks again to you, Angela, for the analysis. Angela Diffley, our International Affairs Editor. Thank you.